All right, we are live at least on some platforms, almost there. Now we're live everywhere thanks to the magic of technology. And I've got a very special guest that I'm extremely excited to spend some time with and pick the brain of. And the topic for our conversation is going to be around how you can navigate being a real estate investor and a real estate agent and what that looks like at EXP or just in general. And so my guest today is Heather Foster, and I'll introduce her and let her introduce herself and let you know about her and where she's at and a little bit of background on her in a minute. But before I do that, do me a huge favor. Number one, if you can hear me and see us, hit that like button for me. Comment below if you're excited to hear Heather's story and how she's marrying those two worlds and making them work collaboratively. And maybe share this with someone that might get value from that. Someone you know who is an investor who's considering getting licensed or is licensed but wants to move into more of the investment side. Any of those types of interests and folks would I think get value from our session today. So Heather is part of my EXP organization, but I didn't sponsor Heather. Heather was actually sponsored by someone that I sponsored, Hillary Johnson, who's in Colorado Springs. Mm-hmm. But with that said, Heather, if you can take a minute and introduce yourself, where you're at, a little bit about your background, how long you've been in real estate in those different capacities, and anything that would be helpful for those watching with us.
Yeah, for sure. So thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. This is going to be awesome. Okay, so I'm Heather Foster. I have been a licensed agent for, I believe, 5 years. I originally licensed in Texas. I was a military spouse. We were stationed in Texas. I had been wanting to be an agent for quite some time, and the opportunity presented itself. My husband was retiring, and I could go on to working a little bit more outside the home. I had always volunteered, so I had always had either a part-time job or volunteered, but this was something that I was going to do for myself. I was very excited about it. As our life unfolds, we were not to be in Texas long-term, which was fine. We had purchased a home in Colorado Springs. Like many years before, and we decided to retire there. And so we packed up, moved the family. I relicensed in Colorado Springs. I was a dual license holder for a little bit, and then decided to let my license go in Texas because I really wanted to start focusing on investing and not so much on real estate. So, or being an agent, I guess I should say. So that being said, we were in Colorado Springs for about 4 years, and then another opportunity presented itself, and we picked up and we have moved to Key West, Florida. So we've been here about, I think, 7 or 8 weeks, and we're definitely acclimating, but we're loving it. But I am still part of Hillary's team in Colorado Springs, and so I'm doing a lot of what you would consider like housekeeping, back of house stuff for her. So I do a lot of the lead generation. I am doing kind of like transaction coordinator stuff for her, and then networking and helping her with like vendors and things like that for our clients. So it's been a very nice. I've kind of enjoyed not being on the front end of real estate because, like I said, that's not really where my heart is. My heart is definitely investing, and this has given me the time I needed to really dig in deep. And I'm a data nerd, so it's given me a lot of time to be able to devote to the thing I love, the thing I'm passionate about, and that is investing.
So what's the plan moving forward in this new spot as far as both on the investing side and the traditional agent side? What do you see that? How do you see that looking for you?
So originally I was like guns a-blazing to get licensed here in Florida. But in Key West, I mean, we all know the market is crazy everywhere, but in Key West, it's tiny. You don't have a lot of new build. The new build that's happening is investors that have purchased lots or things like that, or owners who have finally gotten into it. And it just, I don't want to say I put that on the back burner, but I've kind of put that on the back burner. Really what I want to do is I'm thinking I'm going to invest here. I'm going to manage my time with my knowledge that I have, the education that I've had of, 5 years in real estate, and I'm going to focus on that. And I'm going to, on the real estate agent side, I'm going to pour that into our team. And what I'm really hoping is to add agent attraction and do as much as lead generation and transaction coordinating that I can for Hillary and I.
Perfect. So you have, how long have you been with EXP?
I believe I joined in September of 2019, if I remember. So about 2 years, right?
Okay.
I remember I was actually with a brokerage, a large brokerage, and I wasn't unhappy with that brokerage. I just, Hillary and I had worked together at Century 21 when she first licensed and I was there, and we had remained friends. And I felt like something was missing, and I wasn't really sure if it was me or if it was with my brokerage or really what it was. And so I just had a lovely conversation about, I knew she had moved to EXP, and I had a great conversation with her about, hey, like, what are you enjoying about this? This has a lot of things that I think fit the wheelhouse of what I'm looking for, but I wanted to know a little bit more. And so we had a great coffee. She talked to me about all the things that we talked about our likes and our dislikes, to be honest. And I made the jump, like, I want to say like a handful of weeks later. I was just like, okay, let's do this.
Right on. Yeah. And because of how we're structured, you've moved cross country, but you can still, nothing has to change if you don't want it to change, other than you can't physically work with clients in Colorado Springs from Key West, but everything else you can do.
But that being said, Josh, I actually kind of can in some ways. So I kept my clientele base, and I absolutely can. I mean, if COVID taught us anything, it is that the computer and technology can definitely be our friends. And so I have literally had more meetings, like more face-to-face through technology meetings since I've moved than I think I did the whole year leading up to COVID before I switched over. Like because I've made it's easy to do, first of all, but I don't want to lose those connections. So because I'm not there physically, and you're right, I can't go on listing appointments, right? Like I can't do that. I can't go meet people for coffee, but I can absolutely say, hey, do you have 15 minutes to jump on? Or, hey, let's catch up or whatever. And I mean, I care about those clients still. I want them to be happy. And so it has kind of given me that flexibility to be able to still maintain my client base. Yeah. Of course, Hillary takes over the boots on the ground stuff, but it's made it virtual. A virtual foundation has made it very easy for me to continue nurturing my client base, which is awesome.
That's a beautiful thing. And just kind of a side note, because of the technology and just embracing Zoom meetings like what we're doing right now, and video, email, and text, I've actually closed a number of, even though I'm in the market that I serve, I've closed a number of transactions over the last 12 months where I either never met the clients in person at all or met them at settlement. And yet they still felt like they knew me.
Yes.
They knew my personality, and they were excited to meet me in person, but it's not like they didn't, it's not like they had no idea who I was or what I was about, or
you weren't some random stranger that they, you know what I mean, like they've gotten a few emails from. And I think that's one of the things that I love about this is, so I'm not tech savvy. I mean, I know my way around a computer, but I mean, being kind of forced out of your comfort zone and realizing there are plenty of ways to do transactions. And I love face-to-face. But if we put all of our eggs in one basket, that does not for a successful career make, right? Like we have to be able to adapt. And one of the things I loved about EXP is that I just really felt like they were a technology group that happened to do real estate. Like that's how it kind of, that's how I felt about it. And so it gives me, like I said, I have the flexibility to still maintain my client base. Or like you said, like we have a client right now, I do believe that we're working with, we've never met them. They're buyers that are coming into Colorado Springs. So, I mean, I'm not saying that can't happen in any other, world, but I feel like the virtual aspect of EXP prepares you for those situations, as opposed to getting into that situation and going like, what do I do? Right. Like I felt really prepared. And what's really cool is it has helped me. It kind of gave me that confidence to reach outside my comfort zone when it came to investing as well. So like, now I feel a lot more confident about jumping on a Zoom with a contractor in another state or an agent or potential sellers. It gave me that confidence to know, this is something I can do. I've done it a bunch of times. This is definitely, it's not weird. And you kind of have that ability to calm the person on the other end as well. If they're not,
if you're already comfortable with it. If you're not freaking out, it's calming to them,
Exactly.
100%. So, did you get started as an investor and then get licensed? Were you licensed and then you started investing? How did that kind of come about?
So I got my license to be a real estate agent, but I had always wanted to be an investor. And I really honestly didn't think about how you could do the two. So I have had a heart for investing for a very, very long time. As a matter of fact, I will tell a super quick backstory. I sold a house, my first house that I ever bought when I was 23 years old. I sold it for a profit in the middle of the recession. Now, the profit wasn't huge and it wasn't a humongous flip because flipping wasn't really a thing at that time. But that was kind of unheard of at that time. So we walked away with enough money for us to get into another place when my husband went on his first deployment right as the war kicked off. So I didn't realize that until about 3 years ago. I always saw this thing as a failure, and it really wasn't. And when you look at the numbers, which I was able to do, I was like, holy crud, like I did this thing that I didn't even know that I was doing.
Right.
And that kind of lit the fire for me to say, this is what I want to do with my life. The issue was, though, is I had a husband who was not as comfortable jumping into the realm of investing as I was. And so what we did is I continued my real estate career, but I put a lot of energy and education into the investing world. So I became an agent for investors. I walked properties, some that I probably shouldn't have done alone. I really dove deep into the investing side of things. I started talking to like wholesalers and things like that and seeing how I could compete, for lack of a better term, with these people that didn't have the rules and guidelines that I had, right? Because I really, truly want to help people. My job is I want to make money. Everybody does. I have to feed my kids and I like going on vacation. But I really, truly want to help homes and people that are in a situation where, a home is killing them. They have this albatross.
Right.
So
they have a problem. You want to be a solution provider.
Exactly. And that's truly how I thought of it. So that being said, right before, actually one of the things that helped us get to this move to Key West is we had purchased this home, I think in like 2012, it was our family home, so to speak. And it was too big for us. We have 3 children, 2 were out of the house. My dad had lived with me part-time. He bought a house during the pandemic. And so it was basically myself, my husband, and our youngest child, who was 17. And we have this 3,000 square foot house in Colorado Springs, and we don't need it. And it's becoming too much for us to want to take care of. So my husband and I say that my husband did so much of the work. He learned how to, he was amazing. He learned how to do stuff because we didn't know that we could hire people to do these things and it'd be done well. And so we basically flipped the house that we were living in. Some people call it house hacking, whatever. And so it was fine the way it was, but it was definitely dated. So we kind of did the things that we wanted to do to it, and ended up selling it for, the market's crazy. So we sold it for an amazing profit, and we were able to get some self-esteem when it comes to doing house reno, get some self-esteem when it comes to really diving into the investment side of real estate. And so my husband kind of was able to wrap his head around what really happens and not what HGTV says happens. And then also we were able to make a really sweet profit that kind of propelled us into the second stage in life where we're about to be empty nesters and we just were ready for something different.
Awesome. Very cool. What would you say, or yeah, I mean, I guess what would you say, or how would you think about, people, whether they're investors thinking about getting licensed or they're licensed and think about getting investing, what would you say to those folks? And then how would you address too, the thing that I think a lot of people, not just agent investor, struggle with, the idea that if you're not some mega producer and you're not closing 20, 30, 40 deals a month or a year, that you're some sort of failure in some form or another, which is just not the reality. There's lots of ways that this business can look, and there's lots, it's a matter of, what you want it to look like, and then setting about building a business around those things.
So to that, comparison is the joy of, or the thief of joy,
Yes.
right? So my very first brokerage, it was a small town in Texas, and everybody knew everybody else, and I was an outsider. But not only that, like handshake deals were still happening. And so I had gone through all this course and I felt super smart because I knew everything. And we all know that your real estate school doesn't teach you about real estate. So, right. So I was sitting in the office one day. I was on floor duty actually, and these two guys that worked in the office were talking back and forth about this deal. And one of them turned to me and they asked me if Delaware was a state. And yeah, so like I don't want to sound mean.
Well, I mean, Texas,
I'm just saying, I don't want to hate on my people. My kids are from there, but I was like, what is happening right now? And so at that moment, I realized I was intimidated by all these people in the office, right? And now these two guys that I was intimidated by and who made me feel like a newbie and like not welcome, I guess we'll say. I kind of like looked at them and I was like, you guys are kind of dum-dums. Like, I mean, I know that's mean, but I just was like, I'm comparing myself to these people that didn't know if Delaware was a state, and I'm thinking that I am in some way inferior, right? And so in that moment, I kind of said, this is my business. You run a business. You are attached to a brokerage, and depending on the brokerage, there's, guidelines that they want you to follow. But at the end of the day, you got the one rodeo. Like, do what makes you happy. If you want to do one deal a month and that's what you find joy in, then do that. And if you want to do 20, then heck yeah. I got into the business and I was a mom and a wife, and we had a lot of other things going on in our personal lives. And I could not commit to being a 27-hour-a-day agent. I physically couldn't do it, obviously, but I mean, I had talked to so many people about burnout. Like that was the one thing I had done because I'm that type of person. I had done tremendous amount of volunteer work in my life. And I knew that I am kind of like an all-in type of person and I had to find balance. So that whole conversation about if you're not some sort of rock star, your picture isn't plastered all over your brokerage's website,
right?
That's okay, because that is not everybody's goal. And if that's not your goal, man, that's cool. And maybe next year you kind of want to try for that. Hey, awesome. But this is your business. Run this business the way you want it to be. Of course, you want to be successful, but you dictate that successfulness. And when it comes to, for me, like I feel I am a data nerd. Like I love the ability to hop on the MLS and look at solds and compare properties and look at market analysis. Like to me, that's like people lose time on social media, like Facebook. Like I'll lose time in the MLS. Like I'll look up and like, I've been looking at numbers for 3 hours. I don't even know what I was looking at. So for me, I love that ability to have that access. And I know that I have to give up a little bit of flexibility in my business to be with a brokerage and have be an agent. Right. But that being said, that's why I chose EXP, is because I feel like I have that flexibility to do the things that I really like doing. Yeah, sometimes you have to do the work part of it, but for the most part, I enjoy that. Yeah. But I also realize that not everybody likes that side of it. That's why Hillary and I are such great partners, right? She really likes this other side of it. And so if if you're thinking about, if you're contemplating, like, I'm an investor and I'm thinking about getting my license, I feel like your license benefits you in a lot of ways, but if you're not the person that's going to utilize what you're paying for, then get it, hire an amazing agent. EXP, first of all, has a million,
Right.
fantastic agents that we can pull from. But I mean, that's why you have that rapport with people, right? So find an agent that is investor friendly, have those conversations, build that rapport, and let people know, this is what you're doing. That was the hardest thing for me to do. And I think that's one of the reasons that I held on to like having my license and being a licensed agent in Colorado Springs, is because I got so much negative feedback when I would communicate with people that I was an investor. Everybody wants to give me their horror story. I tell people it's kind of like, having a baby. You have your baby and everybody wants to tell you, oh, I had 20 days of labor and blah, blah, blah. That's what telling people you're an investor is.
Right. Yeah.
And everybody wants to give you that negative
lost, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Somebody like was giving me the thing about, well, I didn't, have you ever done sheetrock? Like, it's so hard, or drywall. And I'm like, well, I was going to hire somebody to do that. But my point being is that if you feel like it behooves you to be that data person and have that data immediately available to you every morning, then heck, get your license. And maybe, you know what, maybe you make some deals after, maybe you make a little extra money off of it.
Yeah.
But if you really want to focus on being an investor, make those relationships. Again, it's your business and run the way you want to run it. But I mean, as we know, Josh, being an agent isn't cheap. It's not free to do this, right? Like, I'm definitely that person that's kind of just squeaking by, usually into the black, every year. But I'm okay with that because I use my agency to focus on my investing.
Right.
And that's what works for my business.
Yeah. Right on. Well, this was great. So we've obviously mentioned a few times EXP Realty. And if you are EXP curious, if you're curious about what we offer folks in our organization and what we do and some of the additional resources and benefits and tools and systems we offer, reach out to one of us. Send us a private message, email, and we'd be happy to have a conversation with you. We're not going to hard sell you on anything. That's not the way either one of us rolls. We'll have a conversation, and if it's something that's of interest to you and it might be a good fit for you, and it fits into how you want your business to look, well, great. And if not, that's fine too. We're always happy to connect with and have conversations with and build relationships with other people in the industry, because you never know when that relationship may turn into an opportunity to solve a problem or to work together or whatever. So we don't bite. We're not going to hard sell you. But if you're curious, reach out. Shoot, like I said, send a private message, email us. It's Heather Foster, Josh Shanley. Just reach out. And we would love to chat. We'd love to explore what it might look like. Heather is one of several folks in our organization who are investors and agents. And some of them skew more agent and do some investing on the side, and some of them skew more investor and use like Heather use the tools and the resources that you get access to when you are licensed to support that. It's however you want it to look, right? And we've got other people in the organization doing the same. So Heather, thanks so much for spending some time with me this afternoon.
Yeah, for sure.
Down there in beautiful Key West. I'm sure you could be out on the beach or something.
I mentioned.
Yeah. We'll hopefully get to talk with some folks thanks to this. And as always, if there's anything I can do to help you, don't hesitate to ask.
Have a good one. Thank you so much for having me.